Bibliophiles of the internet. I read 118 books in 2024, and today I'm here to finally talk about my favorites. In case you're new here, I have a very specific way that I do my yearly favorites videos. I don't rank my favorite books, I don't condense them into top 10s or top 5s, I don't make separate lists for different genres, and I don't even really share plot summaries, genres, or my thoughts. I simply go through every single one of my favorite books that I read in the past year in chronological order and tell you something that I took away from that particular book. There's only two simple criteria for books to make this list. First, I have to have read and loved them, obviously. And secondly, these have to be standout books that I read for the first time in 2024. It doesn't matter if they were published in 2024, before 2024, or even after 2024. If I personally read them in 2024, then they qualify to be on this list. I think that's everything. As I always say, whatever final product you're about to watch is an immense labor of love. There is so much work that goes into making this video each and every year. I hope it shows, I hope you enjoy it, and let's just get started. In Memoriam by Alice Wynne. Sometimes our job isn't knowing what comes next or even knowing whether there's a pathway forward. Sometimes all we can do is try and survive together so that we can all make it to the future in the first place. You Dreamed of Empires by Alvaro Enrique. The story of history might be told by the conquerors, but it will never solely belong to them. The incredible thing about history is not only that we create it each and every day, but that we have more than one chance and more than one way to tell it. The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. To love someone is to accept the necessity of grieving everything they are not, so that we can love them exactly as they are instead. Remember Us by Jacqueline Woodson. It's not enough to simply understand and recognize the truest parts of ourselves. We have to take time and make space to constantly remember those things about ourselves, even as we're continuing to live through them. The Dead Cattail Assassins by P. Djeli Clark. Not all rules are correct simply by virtue of being widely followed. Some rules are meant to be reimagined or broken entirely, and we have to be prepared to do the breaking if it means doing the right thing. On Air with Zoe Washington by Janae Marks. It's one thing to recognize that things have to change in order for us to create a better world, and it's another thing entirely to actually commit ourselves to being a part of that change. The Space Between Worlds by Micaiah Johnson. There are countless versions of ourselves that we discard, destroy, create, rebirth, envision, and become. To be alive is to contain within us a multiverse of both wondrous and horrifying possibilities. Just Another Epic Love Poem by Parisa Akbari. In our lifetimes, we are every bit as likely to be asked for forgiveness as much as we might be the ones seeking forgiveness ourselves. Our capacity to both forgive and be forgiven is part of the beautiful compact of being human. Organ Meats by Kaiming Chang. It's terrifying to think about how the world is inevitably going to change the people we love, the life we live, and even change us in irreparable ways. But our only choice is to trust that the people in our lives and even the world itself will change with us, not without us. The Angel of Khan el Khalili by P. Djeli Clark. Guilt isn't something we can or should avail ourselves of. It's a gift, it's a blessing, it's something that should continue to live and evolve within us so we can avoid making the same mistakes. The Haunting of Tramcar 015 by P. Djeli Clark. There are biases, beliefs, and expectations that we forcefully impose on every situation we find ourselves in, especially when encountering the unknown. And we have to remember that those expectations reveal more about ourselves than what it is we're actually witnessing. Squire by Nadia Shamas and Sarah Alfaghi. Liberation is not something that can be achieved by taking up the tools of the oppressor or by following the pathways laid down by the oppressor. It's something that we have to imagine, define, fight for, and create for ourselves. Celestial Monsters by Aidan Thomas. Just because we don't have the most power doesn't mean our lives are then expendable or without value. What we have to offer each other and the myriad ways the world is inherently changed by the fact of our existence will always outweigh whatever the world demands of us. The Story of the 100 Promises by Neil Cochrane. Love is not something that is owed, nor should it be something compulsorily given. We owe it to ourselves to be intentional about who we bring into our lives, how we love and receive love in return, and how we use that love to both guide ourselves and others through the world. You Should Be So Lucky by Cat Sebastian. No matter how bad things get, no matter how hopeless things might feel, we simply show up again the next day, try again, and continue doing the work. Natural Beauty by Ling Ling Huang. True beauty is not the absence of imperfection, but rather something that can only be defined by its contrasts. We need imperfection, we need differences, dissonance, inconsistency, and variation in order to reach the furthest corners of what beauty can be. Fire Exit by Morgan Talty. History is something that we create and recreate together. It's a never-ending project of reconciling different perspectives and experiences and learning how to live within those jagged edges rather than giving into the urge to sand them down. The Other Olympians by Michael Waters. World history is trans history, and trans history is merely trans futures that have already happened and are still happening to us. Asunder by Kirsten Hall. When we're conditioned to believe that everything is and always will be hopeless no matter what we do, the ability to hope and continue dreaming of a better world for ourselves anyways is an invaluable skill to cultivate. Rough Trade by Katrina Carrasco. Power and our relationship to it is not as static as we're led to believe. Power can be gained, it can be lost, it can be exercised over other people, and it can also be something we discover within ourselves. The Spear Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez. The future will always be worth fighting for, even and especially when it seems uncertain or imperfect. The Seventh Veil of Salome by Silvia Moreno Garcia. While our lives might be defined by certain limitations, we can still find ways to claim and exercise our own power from within those confines. Libertad by Bessie Flores Zaldivar. Caring about each other is actually a deeply revolutionary act, and part of caring for one another is being strong enough to say when we deserve better, not only for ourselves, but also for and from the people we love. The Palace of Eros by Quero de Robertes. True freedom is the ability to choose for ourselves without fear of retaliation, and we owe so much to the people who have fought and continue to fight in order to afford us the freedom to choose for ourselves. The Prince of the Palisades by Julian Winters. More important than being perfect is being someone who makes mistakes, someone who keeps learning and growing through everything, someone who is committed to continuously becoming a better version of themselves. I'll Have What He's Having by Adib Khorram. Being part of a community doesn't just mean looking the same, coming from the same place, or sharing common experiences. Community is the act of caring for other people and also allowing ourselves to be cared for in return. A Master of Jinn by P. Djeli Clark. Our brains are conditioned to make assumptions that fit into the way we already see the world, but it's important to question, to challenge those assumptions, to become comfortable with being wrong so that we can experience the world for what it is rather than what we expect it to be. Compound Fracture by Andrew Joseph White. Our anger and our outrage should be reserved for the corrupt systems and powers that be that deserve it, rather than the good people who find themselves left with no choices but bad choices. Where the Dark Stands Still by A.B. Poranek. It is worthwhile to finally set down our burdens and discover better ways to exist, ways that feed our souls and our fire rather than slowly depleting them. The Bright Sword by Lev Grossman. It's actually a beautiful thing to realize that there will always be more about ourselves and about the world that we have yet to learn, that there might be things we don't know or that we cannot know. In fact, the greatest and most perilous of journeys we have to take is the journey of moving forward, even when we don't know what comes next. Model Home by River Solomon. Sometimes it's not a matter of whether or not we can save each other, but rather whether we can survive for and with each other instead. Chlorine by Jade Song. We actually don't need anyone else's permission to exist the way we want to, in whatever way feels true or meaningful to us. The way we experience the world and our own lives doesn't have to make sense to other people in order to be real. The Seep by Shauna Porter. Being unpredictable, indecipherable, and contradictory is what makes us uniquely human, and that chaos, that imperfection, is very much worth protecting. Bad Cree by Jessica Johns. The closer we are to people, the easier it can be to miss the things that really matter or to see the things they might be going through. That's why it's not enough just to love someone. We have to offer them the chance to be known as well, over and over and over again. The Flicker by H.E. Edgman. Destruction is both a necessary and sacred part of life. Losing something is merely an opportunity to rebuild, to imagine new ways of existing, and to create entirely new ways of filling up that empty space. The Build a Boyfriend Project by Mason Deaver. One of the greatest things about being in community is not just being able to take care of other people, but also having the chance to show them the thoughtfulness, gentleness, grace, and love that we didn't get to experience ourselves. Time's Agent by Brenda Peinado. If we ever find ourselves with the opportunity to resist, to deviate from what's expected, to fight back against the forces attempting to erase us, would we be brave enough to do it? Would we even be able to recognize that opportunity in the first place? Ring Shout by P. Deli Clark. Hatred is a symptom of ignorance and hostility, but righteous anger and the will to resist our own annihilation by any means necessary comes from a tremendous place of strength and love. And finally, Martyr by Kaveh Akbar. There are so many things in this world that we cannot control, but we get to use the finite moments of our lives to decide what has meaning, what matters, what we believe in, who we might become, and what exactly we're willing to live for. So there you have it. Those are all my favorite books of 2024. Barring any clerical errors on my part, which could be totally possible, I am only human, those are all the most special books I read this past year that have stuck with me the most. If you've read any of these books yourself or have any of them on your radar, feel free to stop by the comments below so we can discuss. And of course, I would love to hear all about your favorite books as well. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, educate yourself, be kind to yourself, take care of yourself and others, and I will catch you on the flip side of the page.